So as you hear the sound of the bell, the invitation is to bring the mind back to the body and back to the presence of community, the presence of being. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and of love. Namo Dhammaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community that lives in harmony and awareness. Namo Sanghaya. Dwelling in the refuge of Buddha, I clearly see the path of light and beauty in the world. Dwelling in the refuge of Dharma, I learn to open many doors on the path of transformation. Dwelling in the refuge of Sangha, shining light that supports me, keeping my practice free of obstruction. Taking refuge in the Buddha in myself, I aspire to help all people recognize their own awakened nature, realizing the mind of love. Taking refuge in the Dharma in myself, I aspire to help all people fully master the ways of practice and walk together on the path of liberation. Taking refuge in the Sangha in myself, I aspire to help all people build fourfold communities, to embrace all beings and support their transformation. Dear friends, please find a comfortable, upright posture. And taking this time now to just check in with your body and see what ways to sit so that you can really be in a stable posture, at ease and relaxed, but also so that the mind can be alert and awake. Taking that time to carefully feel into the body and what it needs, checking the back and spine, making sure it's upright but not uptight. And maybe taking a few deep in breaths and out breaths to just restore and energize yourself and also bring forth this soothing and calming energy. And you can continue to breathe with a long and deep breath until it feels settling, letting the breath calm the nervous system. And with full awareness of how the breath is right here and right now, feeling the movement of the breath going in and out, noticing the sensations that accompany the breath, maybe hearing the sound of the breath or the sound within the space around you. Getting in touch with this body sitting here. Perhaps noticing where there's pressure, where the sitting bone makes contact with the chair or the cushion, or where your feet might be planted to the ground. And getting curious about where there's the possibility to soften and rest back into your posture. Softening the shoulders and neck, softening all the muscles in the face, softening all the muscles that hold up your posture and just allowing that to come to rest. Allowing the body to melt into the chair or the seat. And I invite you to breathe in such a way that feels nourishing and comfortable, bringing forth that healthy breath. And simply just by paying attention to the in breath and the out breath, the breath knows how to take care of you. And all you need to do is just trust and pay attention. Breathing in, awareness of the breathing in. Breathing out, awareness of the breathing out. Each moment, awareness is in touch with the in breath, in touch with the out breath. we practice generating interest to the breath and to the quality of the breath in each moment. How is the breath now? And developing this intimacy with the breath, getting to know its texture, its movement, and finding the stillness in the in breath and the out breath. And if you're having a hard time staying in touch with the breath, perhaps you can breathe a little bit harder to really feel the aliveness of the breath in the body. Or you can also anchor yourself in the body sitting here or in sounds. But these anchors help us to find our way back to the present moment experience. However, we find our way home, each in breath is an invitation to stop, to stop the habit patterns of mind to run into the past or the future, to stop and to rest in what's here and now, and to feel deeply the experience of breathing, the experience of being alive in this body. And in this, the out breath is that reminder to set it down, to give yourself permission to let go of the doing, the planning, the thinking, the fixing, the judging, breathing in, allowing and receiving, breathing out, letting go and surrendering. In, out, receiving, releasing. Where do you feel the aliveness of the breath? Can you bring awareness close to the breath and rest your attention here where the breath is most predominant? Is it in the belly, the chest, or at the tip of the nose or in front of the nostrils? Bringing this focused attention, if that's available, to stay with the breath and to observe the breath coming and going, observing the rhythm and the movement, just like a gatekeeper, observing the coming and going of the guest. And in each moment, bringing this energy of determination and this quality of patience and concern to stay, to directly know and to experience deeply the stillness, the calmness within. Amidst the turbulence and movement of mind, there is a calm and a stillness. See if you can touch into that, whether it's that pause in between each breath or that moment where there is a gap between thoughts. Where there is harmony within, when the mind returns back to the body, back to the breath, there is harmony, there is unity there. Mindfulness is remembering, even in the transition, we can practice remembering, remembering to move with intentionality, with purpose, with this recognition of movement. So take a couple minutes here to just stretch. I invite you to bring in some love and kindness to the body as you stretch your shoulder and neck and move in such a way that feels nourishing and supportive to loosen all the stagnant energy in the body. How often do we actually allow our body to move when it wants to move? And stillness can be nourishing, and movement can also be nourishing when we listen deeply to what our body is telling us. And as we honor the body, it takes care of us. It knows how to move, just like our breath. When we honor our breath and trust our breath, it knows how to take care of us. So taking a moment to give yourself that freedom to move. It's a kindness, a practice of kindness when we listen and allow. And so throughout this time while we are practicing deep listening, we can also invite you to feel free to, maybe if you need to stand or shift your posture, please take care of yourself. In our daily life, a lot of times we are, maybe whether it's expected of us or we expect it from ourselves, to sit or stand or be in some sort of posture for a long time. And when we practice mindfulness, we take a minute to really treat ourselves to what our body wants. And that is a practice of care and love. It doesn't need to be something grand at all times. It doesn't always have to be that massage, that it could just be something like the self-massage or the little stretches and those little movements that could really bring forth a smile or that feeling of, ah. So in today's topic, dear friends, I want to speak with you on reconciliation and peace. And oftentimes when we hear of reconciliation, we think that it usually has to be done with someone else. And so in today's topic with reconciliation, I'd like to focus reconciliation on the self, reconciling with ourselves. And reconciliation begins with us, and it is harmonizing with the differences that are within us and outside of us. And reconciliation makes room and allow for us to bring what is out of alignment into alignment, and creates this congruency, such as maybe our ideals and our views and our perception and how they collide with how things really are, which causes the restlessness, the dis-ease, the unsettling feeling that we have in our mind or in our hearts or in our body even. It usually comes in that place where there's a my truth and then there's the universal truth. So this is what we're working inside of our practice is reconciling those differences, those ways in which we uh, are seeing things that may be not the way things really are, but as they appear to be, but not as they really are or truly are. So we practice to bring harmony. So bringing our mind back to the body and also harmonizing our thoughts, giving it a rest. And what this practice is a practice of nonviolence. When we think of engaged Buddhism as being like doing something out there in the world, that doing comes much later. That first step is in us looking at ourselves and where the unrest is within us around the matters of the world, of our society, of our community, of our family. And so we are practicing nonviolence when we practice meditation. And what I mean by that is that we practice stopping. We practice the compulsion of just doing, and running. And how much of that doing and how much of that, the way in which we push ourselves, causes violence within us. Right? And that violence that we create within ourselves because we push ourselves, because we're hard on ourselves, because we forget to stop, how it brings forth the dis-ease or disorder or the unsettling mind. And when we learn how to stop, which is what meditation is, we stop abusing ourselves. And when we forget to stop and we're so caught in doing, I mentioned that we are basically doing harm to ourselves. So then it becomes easy for us to allow others to do harm to us as well, because we unknowingly harm ourselves because we are so caught in doing and rushing. And so it's easy to harm ourselves and let others harm us. So whether it's intentional or unintentional, then it's easy to have that harm done upon us. And so in stopping, we stop the blaming. And in stopping, we learn to come back to take care of ourselves, and we learn to listen. We practice being nonviolent. And in that stopping, we have a chance to hear, what does the body need from me right now? And then we search inside of ourselves for what's right. In the moment when you're in your practice and the mind goes from what's wrong to what's right, there's peace. There is a way in which now it's settled because it's found what's right, what's good about this moment, what's good about this practice of breathing. And then from there, it leads into what's possible now that I've discovered what's right and what's good in the present moment. Many things become possible. So when we practice meditation, we are working to reconcile the differences within ourselves. We get to see the way in which our inner landscape might be in conflict with our outer landscape. Maybe this could be our deepest values, our principles, our commitments, and how first it might collide with our conditioning, or how certain opinions or views we have collide with what is happening outside of us in our relationship, in our society, in the governing system, and all that is unjust about what's out there. So reconciliation begins first with learning how to harmonize within us before we go out and do the work in the world. And so, on this level of self reconciliation, it is a spiritual practice that allows for us to first uh, forgive ourselves and stop being so hard on ourselves. I think that's one of the things that I notice the most inside of the struggles that I myself and friends experience, is that oftentimes, once we do the work of forgiving others, we usually forget that there's still one more person to forgive, and that's ourselves. And to be fully free and experience aliveness is to see all the ways in which we prevent ourselves from the conditions of joy, of happiness, of peace. And so, as practitioners who are committed to peace and kindness and wisdom, what are we committing ourselves to, really? What does it mean to be a Buddhist? What are we turning towards, and what are we shedding and letting go of? I want to just pause here for a moment and just ask you all the question. When you're being pulled away from the breath, from being here, what's going on? What's pulling you away? And for those of you on Zoom, you can unmute yourself and everyone here in the room can hear you. I'm sorry I don't have the second device so that you could see everyone in the room, and vice versa. And for you in the room to be able to see those on Zoom, but there's 4 people here on Zoom. So what pulls you away when you're not attending to the breath? You just shout it out. Maybe it's a couple words, a phrase. What causes that unrest? Responsibilities. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's trauma from the past.
Is it FOMO?
Trauma from the
Trauma.
past.
Trauma from the past. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anyone else? What pulls you away from the breath, from the present moment experience? Sometimes just sounds. The clock in the room became very loud.
I think just thinking about others, thinking about what others are thinking or worrying about other people, pulls me away from just focusing on myself a lot.
Yeah.
And also restlessness.
Yeah. What's underneath the restlessness, Apash?
Oh, just too many things to do,
Yeah. All the things that needs to be done. Yeah.
About the turmoil of others that draws me out.
The turmoil of others. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
I think just like replaying like conversations and events that have happened in the day over and over, like I could have done that differently, or I should have said that.
Yeah, replaying the day's event and what could be said differently, or be done differently. Yeah.
I still stress about letting go of the things I know are right to let go of.
So still stressing about the things that you know are right to let go of, but you can't let go of it.
Well, no, I let go of them, but then I stress about it.
Okay. So there is a letting go of the things, but also then stressing about, oh no, I let that go. Stressing over it. You get that.
Absolutely not how I.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something really terrifying. If I let go of this, then what's there? I need something to obsess over or worry about or to occupy the mind with, or I need to feel like, let's say with our responsibility, feeling important, right? That we have a role, we have our place, in the doing. So really this, the practice of harmonizing and reconciling is reconciling with here, like the incompleteness that of fulfilling our roles, the incompleteness of the things that are undone, and the incompleteness of what is now we're empty of, right? That almost feels like a void because we stuffed it up so much that when that's not there, it's like, well, something else has to be there. For me, it's like my calendar when everyone knows this, when there's space there, a lot of space there. I'm like, oh no, I need to be productive, and and that's my conditioning. The chip I wear on my shoulder is I always had to be doing something. I was taught at a very young age, you can't just sit on the couch and relax and just be. I have to, my dad's very militant, and it was like, go and help your mom, be useful, go read a book, go learn something, go accomplish something. And so we can see how the somebody training and the person that trained us and those voices that trained us are not there, but yet we still carry it with us into the present moment. And we can recognize the impact of those deep conditioning that now causes a lot of unrest in us. So when we sit, we see the conditioning and we see that pull. It's like constantly being yanked into our responsibilities, our to-do list, and the violence of that is done upon to our well-being, spiritually, emotionally, physically, because we are constantly being pushed and pulled, and it becomes a violent way that we are with ourselves without even recognizing it. And so on this topic of engaged Buddhism, today what I'd like to continue to invite you all in this inquiry is, how do we engage with the Buddhist practices that will, one, help us to develop these skills within ourselves of stopping, of caring, of listening to ourselves, and then of being able to take that into our life outside of the Sangha, off the cushion, when we're not in a meditative state, so that we become that peace that we want to see in the world. And Thich Khan shares that the most important thing is to become nonviolence, so that when a situation presents itself, we will not create more suffering. To practice nonviolence, we need gentleness, loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity directed to our bodies, directed to our feelings, and then directed to other people. So really, that starts with first directing non-harm and non-violence to ourselves. You know, the trouble is when, I know for me in the past, when I've done a lot of community service work, was that I haven't cultivated nonviolence within myself. So I ended up burning out. And there was a lot of which in that time, I felt like I had, the blame was outside of me, that it's them, you know. And when I came into the insight tradition over a decade ago, it was recognizing that, you know, in order to be effective out there, there was a lot of work I had to do here to find that peace, to really be the embodiment of compassion and service. So first I had to serve myself. And this is what we do, is we're going in to reconcile in all the ways in which we want peace, we want happiness, we want to love, but we first have to reconcile with ourselves. Where am I not peace for myself? Where am I not loving to myself? Where am I mistreating myself, abusing myself, not listening to myself, not listening to, you know, my body, my feelings, and my mind, and my breath? And so with mindfulness, we began by working to transform the war in ourselves. Mindfulness is the practice of peace, the practice of reconciling all the differences, all the misalignment of where our deepest aspiration can be consistent to our way of being to ourselves, and then to how we carry that out in action and in speech. So the techniques for doing that is, you know, first with conscious breathing, right? So every time we feel upset, we can stop what we're doing, we can come back to the body, we can close all of our sense door, refrain from speaking. And just as you experience here in the last 30 minutes of sitting, how just in silencing our speech and closing our eyes, narrowing, you know, our field of awareness just to the breath and breath in the body, that there's a transformation that occurred. There's a transformation of maybe even neutrality or indifference to now of love, you know, of not knowing, and to now of full awareness, of indifference to concern and care. And by cultivating this peace within, we then can bring about peace in our family, in our relationship, in the society. So it's a kind of, to me, this is the first level of social responsibility, is us taking care of ourselves, our body, our mind, and our feelings and our perception. So social responsibility doesn't necessarily mean we have to go out there and do something, but it's in the stopping. We're being socially responsible. And in the silence, that too is very powerful. It's a powerful demonstration of peace. So to practice peace in ourselves is to minimize the number of wars between this and that, between right and wrong, between, my view and the other, between this belief and that, and we can then have real peace with others because we recognize the duality that exists anytime that we are holding a view or a belief, or anytime that we're expressing that what's out there is not right or should be a certain way. There's some way in which we've lost touch with what is also right, like turning inward and feeling what's right within us, what's good within us. When we touch into that and we come back out into the world, then now we are naturally seeing what's right and what's good within the other, within the situation. And just to share with you a short story, I was in a dialogue. This is a story about a hunter and a vegetarian. One of my practices of that comes from the loving kindness sutra is a line that says, by not holding fixed view. So that's a practice that I take on in all of my interaction, where I have a certain way I live, a certain lifestyle, certain choices that I make. This one is like one of being a vegetarian and why I choose to be a vegetarian. And there are many years where I was really tested, and there were, at the beginning of being a vegetarian, there was this kind of like, this is how it should be, and everyone should be a vegetarian because I see, what's right about it. And in this time, especially here in Oregon, the past 4 years of living here and then being in the world of construction, I meet a lot of, guys who are hunters and they eat a lot of meat. And so I've had some really interesting conversations with a couple friends, one in particular who's a hunter. And um, we have a very amicable relationship, and there's a lot of respect there. But what I guess how this began was when he first told me that he hunts for his own meat, and I was like, wow, I was like, my friend, I'm really worried about the karma that you're creating by killing. And he's, I mean, there's so many versions of what a hunter will say to a vegetarian. One of it is like, well, what about plants and veggies? They also are living beings. So, you're also killing there. And then some of the other versions of it is, that there are, hunting is controlling population, and it helps, right, prevent the animals from being killed, maybe from accidents and other ways that they die. And so it's interesting because I find myself, wow, I have these very Buddhist view about not killing. I could stay curious about why my friends are hunters and how they navigate and arrive at those decisions, because there is something really intentional about going out there and finding your own food versus getting the meat from the grocery store, and understanding the source of it, and knowing that this is animals that are in the wild versus being in a slaughterhouse and factory farming where they don't get to live freely. And so inside of these dialogue where we have a world of a difference with each other, whether it's vegetarian and hunting for food, or whether it is, the right and the left. And you can think of so many different polarities and extreme views on this. And when we step into that space of getting curious and listening to understand, there is a space that we can meet each other at beyond the right and the wrong, beyond the good and the bad, where there is a respect for the other person's view and values. And in that space, there is no judgment, there is just peace, there is just two human beings being at peace with each other. And so reconciliation doesn't mean that the other person adapt our view, right? Or they endorse our lifestyle, but it means that we respect each other from our angle of seeing the world. And that was a really profound moment for me, to first going from this concern for his karma, my friend's karma, to seeing, the intention that he has behind it, that's rooted in a different version of what sustainable, getting sustainable meat is or food is, or what ethics could look like. And Thich Khan, in his time in Vietnam, post war in Vietnam, he was expelled. He was exiled from Vietnam because he had refused to take sides. He had refused to either take sides with the North or the South. And what does it mean to not take sides? Are we just stand like bystander to what's going on? Are we just neutral or indifferent? So there is a way in which not taking side can also mean we're encouraging, we're in a position of something else. And in this case for Thai, it was refusing to take sides meant that he was only working for peace, for a place where there wasn't this I'm right and you're wrong, or it's north or south, left or right. And with this work, he, chose to establish Palm Village, a Buddhist community that helped people practice, and it served the world in helping people to dissipate that line of divide between the two polarity of right and wrong, good and bad. And so when we are at war with the forces inside of ourselves or outside of ourselves, with our environment, with someone in our life, how do we experience that war manifesting in us? That moment where we hear someone who has a very different view from us, or a different lifestyle, or a value that feels like it's opposite from ours. How does that tension or conflict manifest within our mind or within our body? And how does it affect our breath in that time? Do you have something you want to share?
Yeah,
Jonathan? Yeah.
the visceral reaction.
The visceral reaction. Yeah.
Stops my breath. Stress ensues.
Yeah.
Now it's more of a
Hang on, I'm going to give you this mic because I won't be able to repeat everything you're saying. Let's see if I can turn the camera.
it made it uses a stress reaction where my breathing stops. I'm already those bridges. I should say. That's how it used to be for me. It's changing. Now I breathe and my mind simply a different point of view or lifestyle or way of being. And sure they have more common with them than not.
Mhm.
So it's almost an immediate reaction to softening conditioning.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's that practice of being able to see the good, right? The like you said, there's more commonality with us and the individual, the other person. I mean, we say other, but really there is no other. And just a little more about this this friend, this hunter friend I have, is that we have, because of this practice of curiosity and getting to know each other on the level of just two human beings who seemingly have very different lives and beliefs and such. Wow, I've come to know of another way to live and to be in the world, but also like there is a kind of love that's there of two human beings because of that deep respect we have for such different ways of life. And how could that be possible, right? When we think of the war in the Middle East, could we still live our life the way we live it or have our values still intact? But in that space, we meet, there is just respect. There's just I honor your way of life and your view, and you understand my way of life and my view, and we meet each other in that place where all those concepts. I think of the Rumi poem, where all those concepts and theories and right and wrong is not there, and so that first step when we come back to reconciliation within ourselves is discovering what's right within and finding beyond our own concepts, beyond our own conditioning that has us pulled away. Those concepts are, I need to do more, or the other one is, I could be a better mom, brother, aunt, uncle, friend, partner, or they could be a certain way, they should be. All of that drops away. And I would like to share some lines from Philip Moffat when he talks about reconciliation. The intention to be reconciled is the wish to be connected to the sacred oneness of this moment, despite any differences, and by acknowledging the truth of that oneness, to find harmony with any situation, even the painful one. This does not mean that you have to approve or passively accept unwholesome actions, nor do you have to forsake passionately advocating for what you believe to be right. It simply means that you do so while treating the other as sacred.
So it enriches all of us and there's a greater appreciation for one another.
Yeah.
That broadens my base
Mm-hmm.
for stability in place.
Yeah. So Jonathan is saying, for those of you on Zoom, it enriches the sacredness we have for one another, and it broadens our base for the relationship we have with each other, mm-hmm. and how we view each other.
Yeah, rather than standing on a very narrow point of view,
Mm-hmm.
you're stronger.
Yeah. So rather than standing on a very narrow point of view, it's like a way in which there's a stability, right? You mentioned the word stability earlier. There's a stability in where we stand, and it's it's not this tight rope that we're walking on. Mhm. Before we go into our sharing, I'd like to just share with you a poem from the beloved Thai, one of my first teachers, Thich Khan, called Recommendation. Promise me this day, promise me now, while the sun is overhead exactly at the zenith. Promise me, even as they strike you down with a mountain of hatred and violence, even as they step on you and crush on you like a worm, even as they dismember and disembowel you, remember, brother, remember, sister, man is not our enemy. The only thing worthy of you is compassion, invincible, limitless, unconditional. Hatred will never let you face the beast in man. One day, when you face this beast alone with your courage intact, your eyes kind, untroubled, even as no one sees them, out of your smile will bloom a flower. Even those who love you will behold you across 10,000 worlds of birth and dying. Alone again, I will go on with bent head, knowing that love has become eternal. On the long, rough road, the sun and the moon will continue to shine. Man is not the enemy. Our enemy is hatred, anger, ignorance, and fear. From Thich Nhat Hanh. So, dear friends, when we step into that space where we've come to reconcile the differences within ourselves and the differences we have with others, we step into this place of peace. And peace is non-judgmental. Peace is seeing the other exactly the way they are. Peace is beyond the conditions and the ways in which we expect and uphold others to be and ourselves to be. And all of that, the conditioning drops away. So I would like to pause there and invite your voices into the space. And what's coming up for you inside of this talk? Where do you see nonviolence or the absence of nonviolence?
Yeah. Hi, Trina. So, what comes up for me is the importance of having a regular practice where we are able to directly experience what it feels like when there is reconciliation between different parts of ourselves. You know, what it means to have peace of mind, what it means to have, loving kindness and gratitude in our hearts. So it is important to have conscious, deliberate practice that can cut through all the fetters that we have accumulated over decades, decades of living.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you, Lokesh. Yeah. Yeah. The practice of stopping and looking deeply, in other words, is the practice in Buddhist terms is samatha and vipassana. And so when we are able to practice to stop, that's us being able to stop to see our body, to experience the body, experience the breath, to stop and recognize our feelings, however they are now, and to see the mind, the movement of the mind, our perceptions, our clinging, our attachment, our views, and then the practice of looking deeply, which is vipassana, is being able to look and dissect our perception, our angle of seeing the world. How is this pulling me away? How is this creating restlessness or agitation or this knot inside of me? How does this cause me to get entangled or just completely wrapped up? And then from there, being able to contemplate the instability of all things, the impermanence of all things. Even our views, they change, our preferences change, and I mean, how many times have we changed our mind about something and we first have had it so made up, right? So to recognize the impermanence of that, and then to also see how impersonal it is. A lot of what comes to surface in our emotions and in our mind, we have, we we don't have control over what comes up in the mind. It's not personal. It's not ours. So that's the understanding of no self. If it was self, it belonged to us, we'd be able to control what we think and how we feel. So we are just like this vessel that is experiencing the energy, the movement in the mind, the body, emotions. So in order for there to be serenity, there also has to be deep looking and listening. And in order for there to be deep looking and listening, we have to stop for serenity to arise.
This idea of reconciliation it's been a theme this week for me that I didn't have the language to say to sum it up so eloquently as you have. So thank you for that. And so in short, like in all of the efforts to find peace externally, like that's when I need most to get quiet and go internally. That's the lesson of life. And I really loved when you said, like, when we're essentially spazzing out, if we're going to draw that to us, and it leaves us vulnerable for other people to harm us. And you may use different language around that.
Yeah.
But, it's so true, right? It's when we are suffering and we're looking outside and we're not doing the work internally, then it does leave us vulnerable to attract the same kind of harm that we're imposing on ourselves.
Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to ask those of you who share to say your name and your pronouns.
Yeah, Amber, she, her.
Amber, she, her. Earlier we heard from Jonathan. He, him. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if we can do harm to ourselves and cause violence ourselves, it's not hard for that to be done upon us by others. So in this practice, we're coming back to learn how to care for ourselves in such a way that we know how to draw those lines, and I mean it in a way where these boundaries are like supportive and kind and loving. It's not a division where we separate ourselves from others, but it's in a a way that protects them too from creating unwholesome karma when they act out. So we've it's like I think of a tiger who goes back to its cave once it is hurt and injured. It goes back and stays inside of that cave to take care of its wound. So if it continued to go out there and expose itself with its wound, um, another animal is going to attack, and it's going to, you know, get hurt even more, and it'll take a longer time to recover. So in that way, by coming back home to take care of ourselves, we are also being responsible for others as well.
I appreciate you bringing up the nonviolence piece at the end. As we were meditating, I found myself kind of being aggressive with my own mind of like staying focused and visualizing giving yourself loving kindness and I think, like, of course, if I'm being that aggressive with myself, then how could I share loving kindness with others in a less aggressive way if that's how I'm manifesting it within myself? And so I really appreciate this talk with starting with ourselves, and like everything that we do in here is what's gonna come out to everyone around us. So yeah, thank you.
Tyler.
I'm Bob. Very good.
Mhm. Mhm. That's a really profound insight. That recognition that peace begins with me. Peace begins within myself. And wow, it's all the doing drops away, doesn't it? When we recognize that it begins here with us. All the ways in which we attempt to prove our point, make a case, or make sure everything is right out there. All of that. What a relief. I mean, I think it's a relief because it weighs so much on our shoulders that we have to be this for our family member, our kids, our parents, our siblings, our bosses, our co-workers, employees, in all those places, our community, our society. It's like, oh, I just need to take care of me. That's it. Instead of everything and everyone up there and making sure they're all good, and then there's me, right? So it's in a way, it's interesting because Buddhism is definitely not a self-centered practice, but there's a self-focus there. So it's funny, a lot of times when we practice, or well, when we move through the world, actually, when we think of those who don't have this practice, a lot of times we do fall into a way in which we're self-centered. But through this practice of being self-focused, we lose the self-centeredness. Mm-hmm.
I was just going to say something that occurred. An opinion is a burden.
Wait. Okay.
An opinion can be a heavy burden.
Mm-hmm.
Many opinions can be overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
If you break it down like that, look at it that way. So to break down our opinions, take away the conditioning, realize, just be open, just be curious, like you said. Be curious of the other ways of doing things. So, and you're less quick to judge or think, I know what's what, but I know what's right, and someone comes at me, nope, you're dead wrong. Now it's like, oh, well, I may not have thought of that. Sometimes that's hard to admit, but you have to be open to that.
Can you hold the mic closer? Oh, sorry. I know you just finished. Summarize what you said about opinions. And
The opinion, I think, is a burden. Many opinions is an almost unbearable burden. It's a weight we really don't need to carry. There's enough weight to carry in life.
Yeah.
Being open to the opinions of others or different points of view is so important. And to realize that I don't know everything. I can't be quick with answers or yes or no and walk away from something. So to remain curious and open to other ideas is so much more valuable than meaningful and nothing.
Thank you.
That's what it was. Extemporaneous speaking. So, yeah, always remember what I said.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's coming just without, planning, right? Without rehearsing. So it's just in the presence. You're just in the presence of what's here. Yeah.
What might earlier when I said, I still want to say that. Or it could be simple though. Yeah. Not so much.
So there are three motivations that can lead us towards peace, reconciliation, and to being awake to our Buddha nature. We can, recite these three lines as a way to remember how to be peace, how to be this harmony and this unity we want to see. So the first is, today may I do no harm to myself or others with my body, speech, and mind. Today may I be of benefit to myself and others with my body, speech, and mind. Today may all actions of body, speech, and mind be inspired by bodhicitta, the profound aspiration to attain full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. Body, speech, and mind in perfect oneness, and doing no harm, in benefiting ourselves and others, and using this aspiration to move us from being peace to then taking action from that place of peace that will benefit us and all beings. And next Saturday, I'll be sharing on the topic of non-attachment to views. So how do we practice having a liberating mind? And this is a teaching that was at the core of what Thich Nhat Hanh taught during the time of the war and after too, when he saw just the amount of divide between parties and people. And we can apply that here to what's happening now in our society. The practice of non-attachment to view. And I can't think of any policy that could really bring forth this peace. And this practice really does seem so radical. It's so simple, but it's so hard to do. Because it forces us, it invites us to let go of a part of ourselves that we've lived and carried and made a part of who we are, our identity really, to be able to let go and to drop our views. What are we if we don't have those? And so I hope you would join me next week as we hear this talk and as I bring in some of Titikan's teaching around this, and an opportunity again for us to contemplate the Dharma together and reflect. Any last words? Any last shares? Anything that's coming up for anyone that you'd like to share or express or yeah. Okay, now turn the camera here one moment. Oops. All right.
I'm not particularly pleased with things, just a lot of the life-changing events that I've gone through have allowed me to let go of more, to learn the practice of letting go and understand. And so when we're talking about like patterns and behaviors that I've fallen into from birth to now, one of the things that have helped me to like move out of those spaces is recognizing those life events and then how I practice letting go during these times. Like example, I had this beautiful birth plan for Aubrey, my daughter, and it didn't go anything like I anticipated. And so letting go of that and then seeing the beauty of what did happen and the joy that came from it, and just embracing even some of the very challenging, life-threatening aspects of it. And then just, as I've noticed, like as I'm letting go more and more in practice, and not being like in fixed views or fixed ways that it needs to be this way or that way, I've noticed that there's more space for not just peace, but magic is the best way I can describe it. Like sometimes serendipity or like feeling energetically connected to another human being in more deeper and more profound than I could have before. And then having more, I don't necessarily want to say miracles, but just more beautiful events. And just seeing those kind of stronger and stronger, less as empty.
You open yourself up.
What was that, Jonathan?
Just open yourself
Open
up.
it, yeah. Thank you. So opening, up to the what's already there, the flow of life, right? Because when we hold on to things, whether it's mentally, emotionally, or physically, we're blocking the flow of life energy to come in and flow through us, and that's what aliveness is. That's the aliveness that one experiences in meditation that, is of rapture and joy, that feeling of just, wow, just so, in touch with life inside and outside and all around. And that's, what happens in that process of letting go. It's like our pores are open, and our eyes are clear and open wide. It's like seeing things in HD. That's what I like to say. Because there are those moments where when one awakens, it's like everything is so vivid and everything is just palpable.
And it's not all the time, but there's just
Glimpse of it, right?
glimpses of it. At first it was just a few glimpses once in a while, and more. And sometimes it's even just the touching or the, sorry. Sometimes it's even just
when you're interacting with another person and you're open to their view and their way of being, there's like, you're connecting to them. A lot of times when we go to say an event or something and the person speaking doesn't really resonate, when you're open to it, you can connect with them and it will always resonate. Mm-hmm. It's like you are on the same frequency.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best way to describe it.
Yeah. Mm. Thank you. That worked out okay with the video. So I'd like to just end by us together reciting the three motivations. So I will. It's not on that sheet. Yeah. Sorry. But what we'll do is, for those of you on Zoom, this is where now you get to benefit from being on Zoom. Is I'll be able to put in the chat. So there's some perks there. There we go. And for those of you here, you have to listen intently as I will say the words, and then we repeat it. So it's almost like a calm response. And please take a moment to just center yourself. What is here now? What is this moment offering to you in this space that we've shared for the past 2 hours? The experience of being in Sangha, the experience of being able to practice stopping and deeply looking, and the practice of hearing the Dharma and contemplating the Dharma. So I will read the first line, and then you can repeat it back, and then the second and the third, and then I will invite 3 sounds of the bell. We'll breathe together, and then we'll close. Today, may I do no harm to myself or others with my body, speech, and mind.
Today, may I do not harm to myself or others with my body, speech, and mind.
Today, may I be of benefit to myself and others with my body, speech, and mind.
Today, may I be of benefit to myself and others with my body, speech, and mind.
Today, may all actions of body, speech, and mind be inspired by bodhicitta. May all actions of body, inspired by bodhicitta, the profound aspiration to attain full awakening.
Profound aspiration to attain full awakening.
For the benefit of all sentient beings.
For the benefit of all sentient beings.
Thank you, dear friends, for joining me in Sangha and for offering yourself into the space, your practice, your reflection, your insight, your life energy, and how it contributes to my own practice and my stability also. So thank you for being here. And the people in this room will actually be doing a very short watering of the Buddha. So I have a Buddha for Vesak, for the Buddha's birthday, and Elvin let me put in the flowers and such, but we're going to, bathe the Buddha as part of the Asian Buddhist tradition.
Nice.
Yes. Yeah, so that'll be our lovely little thing. And I'm sorry those of you on Zoom don't get to participate in this. But thank you. And I want to just bow to the awakened nature in each one of you. A lotus for you, a Buddha to be. Thank you, friends, for
Thank
joining
you.
in. Take care, and I hope to see you next
Bye.
week.
Thank you.
Bye. I'm going to see if I can turn the camera so everyone can see you here.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. I got a lot of hookup. There you go. Okay. Oh, okay. We can't see Alpesh left already. There you go. So Tyler, Christopher, and Bob. Good to see you. Yes, peace be with you. Oh, and Jonathan.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Goodbye.